Some people do not quit in a way the world knows how to recognize. They do not slam a laptop shut, announce a new life, sell everything they own, or post a photograph from somewhere warm with a caption about finally choosing freedom. They do not make a speech about escaping the system. They do not ask anyone to admire their courage. They just begin to step back from the kind of life everyone assumed they would keep climbing. At first, it is almost invisible. They stop replying to every email like the building is on fire. They stop performing urgency when nothing is truly urgent. They stop treating a new title as a spiritual event. They are still working, still responsible, still capable, but something in their face has changed. The old hunger is not gone exactly. It has become quieter, more suspicious of itself. And people notice even if they do not know what they are noticing. A friend asks why they are not pushing harder. A parent wonders if they are wasting their gifts. A former coworker says, with a little confusion in their voice, I thought you wanted more than this. And maybe they did. Maybe for years, more was the only language they understood. More money, more recognition, more proof, more distance between themselves and the fear that they were falling behind. But there comes a strange moment in some lives when more stops feeling like more. The promotion looks good on paper, but the body does not celebrate. The raise arrives, and instead of relief, there is only the quiet awareness that the next version of pressure has just been purchased. The future looks impressive from the outside, but when they imagine living inside it, they feel less like a person and more like a machine that learned how to smile. So when someone quietly stops chasing success, the real question is not what they gave up. It is what they finally stopped believing in. From the outside, this can look like a loss of ambition. That is the easy explanation, and people like easy explanations because they protect the old rules. If someone steps away from the race, we say they burned out. They could not handle the pressure. They settled, they got comfortable, they lost their edge. But sometimes that explanation is too small for what is actually happening. Some people do not leave because they were not strong enough to win. They leave because winning started to feel strangely unrelated to being alive. They begin to notice that the rewards they were trained to want no longer reach the part of them that needs nourishment. They can still understand why the reward matters. They can still see why others chase it. They may even feel the old pull when someone else gets the thing they once wanted. But the spell has been damaged. And once a spell is damaged, it does not work the same way again. A person may look at the bigger office, the better title, the sharper version of their career, and instead of pride, they feel a dull sadness. Not because these things are worthless, but because they can suddenly see the cost with unusual clarity. They can see the dinners missed, the body ignored, the friendships slowly turned into calendar problems, the inner life shrinking into whatever space is left after performance. The first sign of waking up is not always peace. Sometimes it is disappointment arriving exactly where excitement was supposed to be. This is what makes the race so powerful. It does not feel like a race while you are inside it. It feels like reality. It feels like adulthood. It feels like what serious people do. You work hard, you climb, you improve your position, you become easier to respect. And because everyone around you is using the same scoreboard, the game starts to feel less like a choice and more like gravity. A better job is not just a better job, it is evidence. A higher salary is not just money, it is reassurance. A full calendar is not just busyness, it is proof that you are needed. Even exhaustion can become a kind of status if enough people around you admire sacrifice. This is why it is not fair to say people are shallow for wanting success. Most of the time, they are not chasing a title. They are chasing the feeling of being safe from contempt. They are chasing the relief of not having to explain themselves. They are chasing the warmth that comes when the world looks at them and says, you are doing well. You are not behind. You matter. That little rush you feel when someone respects what you do is not just vanity. It can feel like protection. It can feel like belonging. It can feel like the tribe has not abandoned you. The race works because it does not only promise success, it promises proof. And proof can become addictive when a person has spent a long time doubting their worth. This is why stepping away is rarely simple. It is not just a career move, it is not just a lifestyle change. It is not just deciding to work fewer hours or stop caring what people think. The race has been quietly performing an emotional function. It has been giving shape to the self. It has been answering questions that felt too frightening to answer alone. Am I enough? Am I moving forward? Am I becoming someone people can respect? A scoreboard is painful, but it is also convenient. It tells you where you stand. It gives you numbers, titles, milestones, rankings, visible proof. And even when those things make you miserable, they offer a kind of clarity. You may be tired, but at least you know what tiredness is for. Then one day, the equation breaks. It might not happen dramatically. It may happen at 10:37 at night when an email comes in and your body reacts before your mind does. Your shoulders tighten, your stomach drops. Some part of you prepares for danger, even though nothing is technically wrong. It is just work, just another request, just another small demand from the life you built. Or it happens on a Monday morning, staring at a calendar so full there is no room for a human being to exist between the meetings. You do not feel angry anymore. Anger would at least mean there is energy left. You just feel absent, like you are watching someone else live your life with your name attached to it. Or it happens after you finally get something you wanted for years. The announcement is made. People congratulate you. Your phone lights up. For a few minutes, maybe even a few hours, you feel the old brightness. Then it fades, and almost immediately, a new target appears. Something higher, something harder, something that turns the achievement you just earned into a temporary platform for the next anxiety. And for the first time, you do not feel motivated by that. You feel tired of being moved by it. That is the moment some people begin to understand that the life they were building may be costing them the person who was supposed to live it. But even then, walking away is not clean because what you leave behind is not only pressure, it is identity. For years, the answer to what do you do may have carried more weight than you wanted to admit. The company name answered for you, the role answered for you, the ambition answered for you, even your stress answered for you. It told people you were important, in demand, involved in something difficult enough to justify your absence from yourself. Then, when you step back, the easy explanation disappears. You may still have work, but it does not impress people in the same way. You may still be building a life, but it does not translate well at dinner parties. You may have more peace, but peace does not sound as impressive as momentum. You may be healthier, more present, less consumed, but those things do not always make the room go quiet with admiration. And this can create a grief that people do not talk about. Not regret, exactly. Not a desire to return. Grief. Because even if the old version of you was exhausted, that version was legible. People knew how to understand them. You knew how to introduce them. There was a story everyone could follow, working hard, moving up, becoming more. But who are you when the story is not about more anymore? Who are you when your life becomes harder to summarize? The hardest thing to lose is not always the job. It is the version of yourself the job made easy to explain. And then comes the shame of choosing differently. A person who slows down does not only meet their own uncertainty, they meet the discomfort of everyone still running. Sometimes the questions are kind, sometimes they are not, but even kindness can carry a hidden judgment when it is shaped by the old rules. Are you okay? What are you doing next? Do you think this is a good long term move? Don't you think you could do more? The strange part is that many of these people genuinely care. They are not trying to hurt you, they are trying to place you back into a familiar category growing, climbing, recovering, failing, preparing for the next thing. Anything is easier to understand than someone calmly saying, I do not want that version of more anymore. Because when you choose a quieter life, you accidentally become a question in other people's minds. Your choice makes their choice visible. Your refusal makes the game look optional. Your slower morning makes their exhaustion harder to romanticize. And this is why a person can be doing something deeply honest and still feel guilty, as if their peace is an insult to the people who are still suffering properly. Choosing a quieter life can feel shameful when everyone around you still believes noise is proof of progress. And that is why the fantasy of freedom can be so misleading. There is a shallow version of this story that says, just leave, simplify, stop caring, and peace will arrive. But real life is rarely that clean. Many people step away from the old race and still find themselves checking LinkedIn, still comparing, still feeling a sting when someone younger gets promoted, still wondering if they made a terrible mistake during a quiet afternoon that should have felt like a gift. Because the nervous system does not instantly trust a life without urgency. If you have spent years using pressure as proof that you matter, calm can feel suspicious. If you have spent years being rewarded for overextending yourself, rest can feel like danger. If your worth has been tied to visible progress, an ordinary day can feel like failure, even when it is exactly what your soul was asking for. The quieter life is not automatically peaceful. Sometimes it is only quiet enough for the truth to become louder. Without the old noise, you begin to hear questions that were easy to avoid when you were busy. What do I actually want when nobody is impressed? What kind of day feels honest to me? What am I afraid people will think if I stop optimizing my life? What parts of my ambition were love? And what parts were fear dressed in expensive clothes? These are not easy questions. They are slower than goals. They do not produce quick dopamine. They do not fit neatly into a 5 year plan. But they are the questions that appear when a person stops outsourcing their definition of a good life. This is the deeper difficulty of leaving the race. In the race, even if you are exhausted, you know the rules. Earn more, move up, get recognized, expand the network, upgrade the life, make the story look better from the outside. There is paint in that, but there is also structure. Outside the race, many of the most important wins become almost invisible. No one gives you an award because your chest no longer tightens every Sunday night. No one applauds because you are finally present at dinner instead of half listening with your mind inside an inbox. No one updates a public profile because you spent a quiet afternoon with someone you love and did not feel the need to turn it into content. No one congratulates you for becoming less impressive and more whole, and that is why this path is harder than it looks. Leaving the rat race is not choosing an easier life. It is choosing a life where no one else tells you whether you are winning. That is the part many people do not understand. The person who leaves is not necessarily avoiding pressure. They are trading one kind of pressure for another. The old pressure was performance. The new pressure is meaning. Performance asks, how do I look? Meaning asks, does this life actually feel like mine? Performance has deadlines, numbers, feedback, applause, comparison. Meaning is quieter. It asks you to pay attention to your body, your relationships, your energy, your private sense of truth. It asks what kind of success still feels worth having when nobody is watching. It asks whether the life you are building is something you can inhabit or just something you can present. And this is where the new game begins, not a softer game, not a lazy game, a more ambiguous game. You have to build a new measure out of things that do not always impress people. Presence, health, time, inner steadiness. A life that does not require you to abandon yourself in order to be admired. These things sound simple until you try to choose them in a world that rewards spectacle. It is one thing to say you value peace. It is another thing to choose it when ambition starts whispering that you are falling behind. Because the old rewards do not disappear overnight. The brain still remembers them. Recognition is fast, status is bright. Achievement gives a clean little hit of certainty. A slower life offers rewards that can feel almost too small at first. A morning without panic, a conversation that does not feel rushed, a body that is no longer bracing for the next demand, a day that belongs to you before it belongs to the world. At first, those rewards may not feel like enough, not because they are meaningless, but because you have been trained to recognize intensity more easily than peace. You may have to learn the texture of a different kind of satisfaction. The kind that does not spike, does not announce itself, does not make anyone envy you, but slowly returns you to yourself. And learning that can feel awkward. There will be days when you feel clear and grateful. There will be days when you miss being admired. There will be days when someone else's success reopens an old wound you thought had healed. There will be days when you wonder if you have confused wisdom with fear or freedom with shrinking. That does not mean you chose wrong. It means you are retraining what your nervous system is allowed to call enough. And one of the hardest fears in that process is the fear of wasted potential. This fear has a special grip on people who have always been capable, people who were praised for being smart, driven, disciplined, promising, people who learned early that their gifts came with an obligation to turn themselves into something impressive. For them, slowing down can feel less like rest and more like betrayal. What if I am wasting what I was given? What if I could have been more? What if this smaller life is just fear pretending to be wisdom? These questions can be painful because they are not completely irrational. Potential matters, growth matters. Ambition is not the enemy. The problem is that not every impressive version of you is the truest version of you. Some versions of success are built from fear, fear of being dismissed, fear of disappointing family, fear of being ordinary, fear of looking like you did not live up to the story people projected onto you. And when that kind of fear builds your future, the future may look beautiful from far away while feeling unlivable from the inside. So the question is not whether you should use your potential. The question is what your potential is being used to serve. Is it serving your life, your values, your aliveness, your capacity to love and think and be present? Or is it serving an image of you that other people can easily respect? Because there are forms of success that expand you, and there are forms of success that slowly erase you while everyone congratulates the outline you leave behind. This is where a new definition of success has to become more than a quote. Success may still include work. It may still include money, ambition, creation, excellence, discipline. This is not about becoming passive or pretending material reality does not matter. A person can leave the old scoreboard and still care deeply about building something meaningful, but the measure changes. Success might become having enough money without having to trade away your health to get it. It might become doing work that does not make you dislike the person you become under pressure. It might become a day where you are not constantly proving that you deserve to exist. It might become being available to the people you love, not only physically, but emotionally. It might become waking up and not immediately feeling owned by a life you once thought you wanted. These things can sound ordinary, almost too ordinary. But that is only because the old scoreboard trained us to respect what can be displayed. An honest life does not always photograph well. It does not always make a strong announcement. It may not provoke admiration in a room full of people comparing accomplishments, but it can do something more important. It can feel less foreign to the person living it. A life does not have to look impressive from the outside to feel honest from the inside. Still, even when you understand this, you may find yourself between two worlds. A part of you may know that you no longer want to live for status. Another part may still ache when status passes you by. A part of you may believe in peace. Another part may still miss adrenaline. A part of you may want freedom. Another part may be frightened by the lack of clear instructions. This does not make you fake, it makes you human. Old systems do not leave the body just because the mind has outgrown them. The scoreboard can lose its authority long before it loses its emotional charge. You can stop believing in a game and still feel the pull of its rewards. You can choose a quieter path and still grieve the version of yourself that would have been easier to admire. There is no need to turn that conflict into a failure. You are not simply a person who left something behind. You are a person learning how to live without a measurement system that once made the world feel organized. You are between the self who needed the scoreboard and the self who is slowly learning to live without it. And maybe that is why the quiet exit is so quiet, because it is not only a decision, it is an unlearning. It is the private collapse of a belief system that may have carried you for years. It is realizing that the thing you thought would prove your worth could never actually give you the kind of peace you were asking from it. The race will still be there. It will continue without you. There will always be someone climbing faster, earning more, becoming more visible, living a life that looks cleaner and sharper from the outside. And some part of you may still look at them and wonder, not because you want their life exactly, but because the old ruler still knows how to measure. But once you see the ruler, you cannot fully confuse it with truth again. You can still work, you can still build, you can still have ambition. You can still care about doing something excellent with your life, but something in you may no longer be willing to sacrifice your inner life just to make your outer life easier to applaud. And that is not the end of wanting. It may be the beginning of wanting more honestly. Because maybe the people who quietly stop chasing success are not people who lost their fire. Maybe they are people who became unwilling to keep burning for a life that did not feel like theirs. And that is where another kind of person begins to appear. The person who does not need much, not because they gave up wanting, but because they finally learned the difference between enough and impressive.